All right, thanks so much, everyone, and thanks for taking some time out of your day. We're going to talk about growth and marketing. Specifically, we're featuring a number of members from the Growth and Marketing Committee here at Intersect. For anyone who's been following, if you've seen it, Growth and Marketing Committee has been in bootstrap for the first part of this year so far, but we are very happy to announce that the meetings are going to become public starting as soon as next week. So, I'm joined here today by Elis. We also have Wes, Tim, and Nate. So Wes here is our chair currently, and then we have Tim, he's our vice chair. So yeah, we're gonna get some different things going. But Wes, pass this to you here. Explain the role of the GMC and what have we accomplished in this bootstrap phase so far?
Thank you, Tex, and thanks everyone for coming out. I would say that this most apparent product of the GMC is this developer and governance day that we're all experiencing here and now. That was definitely an idea birthed out of the Growth and Marketing Committee of Cardano, which is an Intersect committee. We're a strategic and decision-making body that's formed of marketing experts from across the ecosystem, representing all parts of both organizations, individual contributors, and regions across the globe. We work on things from setting the budget, breaking that apart into various marketing initiatives, as well as creating standard operating procedures and formulating the alignment with the Cardano roadmap and the 2030 vision, specifically with the product committee, but with all other committees and how marketing can further empower their mission forward.
Absolutely. So lots of great initiatives and plans, and we've just been working to see how we can get that started, even though we didn't make it across the line for that interest in the budget initially, but we're still pushing these things out anyway. So really good to see that. Tim, I'll go to you on this one here. So if we zoom out, what are we looking for in terms of marketing and growth for the Cardano ecosystem?
I think the first thing we need to achieve as an ecosystem and as a community is alignment around actually what marketing is. One of Cardano's core strengths is its decentralization. One of its core strengths is the level of technical expertise embedded across the community. But I think one of our weaknesses is we don't agree what marketing is and how much we should spend on marketing and where we should spend it. So I think one of the core missions for the GMC over the next 6 to 12 months is to try and drive that conversation and to get to a level of consensus and a level of understanding of what marketing is. I think crypto marketing is generally terrible. It generally has a terribly bad name. It's seen very much as a retail extraction tactic, but actually marketing really needs to be looked at in a much more holistic way. One way I look at it is it probably works for a technical audience. You need to think of marketing as a stack, and there's different types of marketing at every layer of the stack. Another way to think about it is an iceberg, and you only see the top. You see the surface top stuff. You maybe see the logo. You maybe see the brand. You maybe see call to actions on social. You maybe see lots of influencers pulling silly faces on YouTube. That tends to be the most apparent face of marketing. But if you go further down the stack, you can even get as far down as developer onboarding. Great technical documentation is probably the best marketing you can do for a technical audience. We've seen other blockchains, notably Solana, drive incredibly powerful and very, very effective developer onboarding campaigns through things like their hacker houses and their kind of soup to nuts developer journey, which takes people all the way from learning core code to finding seed funding for their projects. So I think marketing really needs to be seen as something that operates at every layer. Product marketing is another one. I think Cardano has an amazing product. It's about to get even more amazing. I think we're going to see about 20 new projects passed today at the epoch boundary, funding all levels of technical improvements and capabilities. We've got a really strong story to tell, not least the fact that we have this incredibly broad, wide, and deeply intelligent community with access to a $1.6 billion fighting fund. And if that's spent correctly, and the right people are in the room to make the right decisions, that can really power Cardano forward. So I think in summary, our biggest marketing challenge actually is about understanding and agreeing as a community what we want to do when it comes to marketing, where we need to spend our money, and how we're going to truly drive active usage on the chain.
So I'll pull out a few key things there. We're talking about the community. The community has the talent that we need. and then achieving consensus. And so that's going to lead us into this unified voice. And so if we explore that for just a second, Nate, if you can tell us, what does it mean? Why is it important for us to have a unified voice across a decentralized community?
Thanks. That's a great question. So my name is Nate. I'm from Emergo, lead global marketing across the region. When we talk about a diverse voice, so let's zoom out first. So a good brand, a good product, tech companies, you need consistent comms, you need consistent KPIs, you need one voice. When you set KPIs for localized events, you still need to measure them. You need to come back and decide what worked, take these learnings. A lot of the companies that we're talking to today have those learnings from events over the last few years. How do we take those benchmarks and use them for what we need to do? A lot of these things, these playbook items, can be used to empower decentralized communities. A unified voice can then be executed at a local level. So I think there's a mix of taking these learnings, using them as a playbook, allowing the committees to empower those decisions, but also finding trusted, reliable partners like Waxman as a PR agency or First Event as an events agency, and being able to utilize those to basically using experts where we need to and doing things in-house with our own learnings where we need to as well, and ensuring that we're open to those learnings. So I think that's encompasses a unified voice, but deployed at a decentralized environment.
I just maybe add one thing to that you touched on that I think is also super important. It's about granularity of decision making as well. Not everybody can be a marketing expert. Not everybody is. I think everybody, however, can be an expert in what they feel Cardano wants to achieve. And I think part of our role is to try and understand a framework, a strategic framework for delivery of different marketing initiatives with clear KPIs, being able to demonstrate return on investment that will win the trust to make certain decisions on behalf of the Cardano community. You don't want to have a controlling function. We've moved away from any level of centralization. We don't want to go back to that. But I think it's by providing those strategic frameworks that help DREPs and the wider community make those decisions and be able to hold people, agencies, whoever it might be, to account for delivery against those is also a super important part of the mix.
So I think we are pushing to the next topic here, and these work really well together. So Elis, I'm going to put this to you. What role does collaboration play with the committees, the working groups, going back to these core functions, the founding entities, and how does that help us to deliver impactful growth strategies?
Yeah, sure. So what we've been working this year really closely together with Red Network, Emergo, WADA. So we're looking at events, summits, Cardano summits, booths, all across the world, bringing it together under one Cardano flag, repeating, learning, measuring impact. So this event is a great example already what we achieved in the meantime of the budgeting processes and everything. So it's very nice to see how it all comes together. So next up on the tour, we have Cardano Summits coming up in LATAM, held by Ada Solar, in Rio, in Buenos Aires. Then we're going to Berlin for the Summit Global flagship event, as well as India, held by Emergo during India Blockchain Week. We have WADA somewhere in the audience here. Africa Town Hall, so going to Nairobi, and in addition we are also working on 11 unified blockchain conferences where we want to bring Cardano booths, marketing activities, and things like that. So everything is in the works. We're working closely together, and already these events happening here. There's also something happening in Blockchain Rio right now, so everything is in the works.
And I think that'll come right back to GMC, and what we're trying to present here today is these conversations have all been happening within the GMC. And our goal is not to hide that away from anybody. And so I'll mention again that we're going to take this public, but what we're doing in these meetings is we are bringing everybody that has the idea or wants to expand on these events and continue to show demonstrated impact. We're putting that all in the same room, getting that all approved on the same scale by all the relevant experts in the field, and just allowing this all to take place and pushing for just that next level.
Yeah, I wanted to connect some dots too. from what Nate mentioned as well as Elis, it's not only the unified vision and this strategy where we're all aligned. So like decentralization is important, but alignment is also very much important. One, because we have to divide and conquer on the workload. This is across the globe throughout the year, and there is no just centralized events team for Cardano. Other foundations have that, but there's definitely a lot less community involvement, and I would just say diversity of skill sets that are being brought in. Secondly, it's the metrics, being able to actually collect the data holistically and do something with it in the end, and learn and continue to improve and actually work on business development with this strategy. But I think lastly is the cost efficiency and the avoidance of clashing throughout these conferences, for instance, more so from the events guy, but I think that this is applicable to all marketing strategies across the board. But for instance, Token 2049 last year, right? We had IO having events, we had Emergo having events, we had InMaker, we had Rare Network, we had others. All this is happening, but there's no alignment. So there's events that are clashing, okay, can't be two places at once. There's cost efficiencies that are being, overlooked, where we could save massively, have opportunities for collaboration. So when we say unified, it's not only from like the actual brand and vision that's aligned with the product roadmap, it's really down to that like event by event basis, avoiding clashing, allowing for better alignment, but then still working in one of the most decentralized ecosystems out there in the blockchain space.
If I can ask you to continue for just another second here, let's talk about the community engagement aspect of that and what the GMC is intending to do.
Yes, so this is something I think to put a lot of emphasis on. This event, we are very much appreciative that it was funded by the community. We hit the 67% threshold. For the unified events, we are not there yet, but that's where the community benefits the most. That would be 11 worldwide events through mid-May of 2026, worldwide, from events that focus on investors to government, regulation, to startup culture, right? The community can benefit by actually participating in the booth, in the conference takeover, promoting their brand with actually not having to burn a hole in their marketing budget. So there's a ton of incentive for the startup ecosystem to support this proposal, get involved, and work with ourselves at Rare Network, Emergo, Cardano Foundation, depending on which region. We're each kind of leading different regions. Communities can get involved and be a part of that booth experience or that side event social aspect.
And so we'll reframe a little bit of why we're here, what we're talking about. Tim, this one's for you. So what would you say is the single most important challenge that Cardano really needs to focus on when it comes to marketing and growth?
Well, it might sound like an obvious answer, but I think it's ultimately visibility outside the core Cardano community. I think we need to recognize we are in a bubble. It's a lovely bubble. It's a warm and comfortable bubble, but it's not a sustainable one. And I think that's why things like event strategies are so important. We need to recognize that we are a player in the top 10, usually top 11 in terms of market cap. But I would say in terms of industry visibility, we're still facing these extremely negative narratives of ghost chain, or is Cardano still a thing? And I think that's why presence at sort of major global events like Token, like Consensus, these events, they're just one small part of the marketing mix, but they're an incredibly important part to maintain and to rebuild, if you like, the visibility within the wider crypto industry. I think that's a really important challenge. And again, to reiterate the word, I think it's about finding the right balance between fragmentation and alignment. Decentralization is fantastic. As Wes said, it means you can break the work up. It means you can bring in experts in particular fields to take on particular accountabilities and responsibilities. But we have to align around a clear strategy. Otherwise, it'll be busy throwing pebbles in a lake. You know, we need to turn all those pebbles into a few bigger rocks and make much bigger waves.
All right, so Nate, I'm going to pass this one to you. You've been around the last couple of days, governance workshop, and we've heard a key term here, executive function, and we can pop this around, but what in your perception would be the impact of having an executive function in the Cardano ecosystem and how that's implemented?
Yep, we talked a lot about the executive function yesterday, and I think the title was misleading. A lot of people took online and said, should this be executives running it and things, and it's actually not. It's executive function is largely, we know that Intersect were by default doing a lot of the work that necessarily were straying away from their core remit, so there was a portion of work that needed to be done that potentially now we have the opportunity to reflect and decide, could somebody else do that with a different expertise? And largely in relation to marketing, again, it goes back to things like consistent KPIs, ensuring that people are accountable. So if we did work with an agency vendor or any sort of marketing vendor, how do we keep them accountable for what they deliver? There's things like spend allocation. So when Tim talks about a broader holistic marketing strategy, within that is, what percentage do you spend on or what channel? And how do we get people with experience to decide that? And then when it's done, reallocate and optimize it to say, oh, well, actually, let's not spend this much on this channel this year. Let's adjust it as the market changes. And I think there's a role between the committees and the executive function that can really fill that gap.
Anyone else on the executive?
I mean, since we're a marketing panel, I'll just give a shameless plug, seeing as I've seen something appear on the screen behind me. We haven't got all the answers. We don't even pretend to have all the answers, and certainly we don't have the brief. So we want to form a brief, and we want to form a strategy. And so this week we launched a survey, which when we're out the way, you can take a photo of that. But if you want to find it, you'll find it on the Intersect Twitter account. I think Rare have retweeted it as well. It's about a 15-minute survey in total, but what we're really trying to understand is, who are you in the community? You're an SPO, are you a builder, are you a founder, are you an Adrian enthusiast, are you a governance ninja? And to really understand what your perceptions are of what kind of we need to do, where are the areas we need to focus, what are the core strengths that we should really focus on flexing. Again, one of Cardano's greatest strengths is one of its greatest challenges. It's the Swiss Army knife of crypto. It can do so many things. But what do we want to be famous for? And we need to decide that really as a community. And it's this combination of expert execution, expert advisory, and true community desire that's going to get us to where we want to get to. So please do fill in the survey. I think we've got about 40 filled in already, which is a really great start. But we want to get this as wide as possible. And the findings will obviously be fully released, but will also really help us understand what the community feels we should be leaning into and maybe leaning away from. That's an important thing. I don't think many of us necessarily want to go down the routes of certain other very famous chains that are maybe doing things that we don't actually think fits with the ethos that we want to maintain and the spirit of decentralization and the spirit of empowerment that we want to try and pursue. So please do fill in the survey. That's my shameless plug over.
All right, so sorry that we're running down on time, but we talked about this a little bit throughout. So Wes, I'll toss this back to you. Let's talk about the importance of events when it comes to growth and marketing strategies. And just a quick plug, I would say, as I've had the chance to look back over the last couple of years, I would have to say for Cardano, these events have been for a purpose, and I think that's an important part. So just give us some more on events.
Yeah, I think it's very simple. Events, my mic working? Check. Yep. Events are a trust accelerator, and that's just simply from the power of shaking someone's hand and looking them in the eye. And it really is like as simple as that. And the trust acceleration can be reflected in the numbers like year-over-year developer growth or business partnerships that are initiated IRL at an event. And it's important to do them on pace, year-long, worldwide. So with Rare Evo, it originated as Rare Bloom, and we're two stake pools that came together to pull off the first Cardano community conference. And so we've grown that since into a rather large multi-chain conference. And what does that mean? So that means that we went from you're the Cardano event to you're the event with 20 other L1s. And that trust accelerator kills tribalism and pushes for cross-chain innovation, where we can actually learn from each other and improve rather than just argue about it. So I think just keeping it like super basic, everyone knows the power of how that, that in-person connection can shape your life faster and more trustworthy, and you can apply that to events and also powerful marketing campaigns that build trust too. So I think it really comes down to the trust being built, and then that accelerates growth.
Absolutely. Tim?
Do we have any time for any questions or reflections from the floor? I'd certainly, I mean, there may be a few views here.
Sure. Thanks, Tim. Yeah, I'd like to ask if any of you could speak to who do you think we as Cardano need to market towards? Are we trying to attack, is there an arm that could be attracting devs? Is there an arm that could be attracting retail investors? Is there an arm that could be attracting nation states for governance? Is there an arm that could be attracting institutional finance? Is there an arm that could be attracting fellow partnerships with other blockchain and technologies that empower, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Again, Swiss Army knife. What do you feel is the most important thing needed for Cardano to laser in on?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the committee standpoint, it would be getting actual working groups broken out that have that focus. Because, we need to work on the general unified vision and general mission statement of Cardano and how that's branded. But in the same case, there needs to be people with focus that aren't always just looking at the big picture. And so we have things like the enterprise working group as a part of the growth and marketing committee, where people can come in and have that focus on how do we foster relationships with enterprises and showcase enterprise blockchain use cases. And then I think applying it to events is having a diverse events strategy. So in North America, we have DC Blockchain Week. All right, that's the regulators. We have North American Blockchain Summit. That's historically more the Bitcoiners. We have this Bitcoin narrative. Then we have Consensus Miami, very much multi-chain. Then we have Future Proof, all of the wealth advisors in America, so we can push for retail, setting up wallets, pushing people to buy ADA, right? So if you have a strategy that's diverse, not only from a regional standpoint covering the globe, but also in the style and the themes of the conferences that we hit from an event strategy standpoint, you will be able to foster those relationships and make sure that one doesn't slip through the cracks while the other's thriving.
So in timing, let's get this one and that one. We'll answer both.
Yeah, a question I have is, I've looked at the survey and stuff, and how do you close the gap between the sort of highly decentralized ethos that Cardano has that just doesn't exist anywhere else, honestly, to coming up with something that we can actually market? I'll just pick business, so that we can say, hey, we are the best place for your business when the sort of products and ethos in Cardano are so decentralized and so sort of in their own silo that it's, and I could be wrong, but it seems very hard to answer the question of, how do we sort of serve your needs when we sort of have this scattering. And I think that that's also reflected in what we were talking about yesterday about how it always sounds good, oh yeah, we need marketing, but then nobody can agree to what to market or why or to who, and then it doesn't get funded, and well, we're back to, well, we need marketing, and then that's where it stops.
So actually, hi everybody, I'm David Waxman. I founded a company called Waxman 10 years ago. I was very lucky to be the agency of record for Cardano when we launched with IOHK, the Cardano ecosystem back in 2017. And I can tell you that this has been a special ecosystem even before anyone knew about it. Right? This was by far and away the most academically rigorous, well-researched protocol to ever exist. And look what's happened in the last, 8, 9 years since then? It's been remarkable. I think Elis said something so wonderful that it needs to be underscored and over and over and over. There needs to be one flag for Cardano, one flag that anyone can wave, whoever wants to, as high as they want, whatever size they want, but there needs to be one flag. That is the best articulation I've heard for being able to describe what makes this special. and then it can be used in different ways for enterprises, for developers, for nation states. That's what really matters. And it's very doable, but it does depend on us agreeing to what that flag looks like, what that flag's color is, the appropriate way to wave it, something like that. Just a few things that we can consistently say, and then we can target it. And target it through the expertise of all these people on stage here. I mean, I think this has been a really robust discussion. And Wes's discussion about kind of how a robust event strategy should be very diverse makes a ton of sense. But we can't only engage, and I'm sure everyone here would agree, at events. It needs to happen outside of those events. Of course, Cardano the ecosystem should be represented in Washington, D.C. Of course, it should be represented in London and in Brussels and in Singapore and all over the world, even when the events aren't happening. And that can be done through a really thoughtful multi-channel marketing campaign. And I know this community has the expertise to do so. It just needs to be, we need to be waving that same flag. So Elis, I just want to say, give you a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, so Tim, I'm going to give this back to you on the survey question and how we turn that into an actual plan.
Yeah, well, I think David's answer went quite some way to addressing that. But I think another critical point of this, the survey isn't the silver bullet, it's the beginning of the conversation. I think working closely with the top projects on Cardano is also incredibly important. We don't have every base covered, but we do have RWA projects. We've got obviously lots of DeFi, yield, liquidity kind of products coming through. We've got our own prediction market now as well. So we do have potential players in a number of different kind of Web3 sectors. So I think it's really about trying to bring those together. I see that also as a very important function of the GMC. We have an enterprise working group. I would love to form a DeFi working group. I would love to form a RWA working group to truly understand from those projects' perspective what they feel they need to be successful and the extent to which the community and marketing strategies around Cardano can help give them some individual profile as well. This isn't necessarily about picking winners, but I think if you look at most chains, they do have a number of star players that have been responsible for kind of building the highest profile and the highest amount of transactional volume. That's ultimately what this is about. It's about getting people using the chain. So I think it's a combination of a high-level strategic framework, understanding the different industry verticals where we might be able to win, and understanding the individual projects and founders who might be able to help Cardano win.
All right, well, that is our time here for today. So definitely thank you so much for showing up. Please come to Intersect, come get involved. GMC is meeting weekly, so we've got plenty of time to work these things out.